Folks, nothing is wrong with your computer. It is pitch black in here due to a power outage, which was random and weird. And of course, the first thing I can think of are the tanks that I have. So I'm gonna look around for a flashlight. I happen to have my phone right on me when the power went out. Right now it's 5:11 p.m. and outside you can see it's dusk. You know, there's somebody with a flashlight walking across the street, down the street right now. You kind of see that light flickering. It was weird. So what do you do with your tanks in a power outage? I'm going to light some candles and we'll have a little chat about it. But I am watching the tanks. I know this is not an exciting video. It's kind of Blair Witch Project-y with the lights out. But I am concerned about the tanks. I'm going to be watching them here. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about what to do in a power outage. So I will be right back. Real quick, folks, before I get set up, one of the first things I'm going to do in this outage is I'm going to walk over to my filters and I'm going to unplug the light on all of these. Reason being is that I don't... So hopefully you can see that. So I've got my filter plug that's unplugged now. And I'm going to walk around and I'm going to do this for all the tanks. Reason being is that if this power outage lasts any longer than an hour, that allows the ammonia. Here's another one right here. I'm going to unplug this one. This is the filter to my spec, so that's going to be unplugged. So immediately in a power outage, the first thing you want to do is unplug your filters. Like I said, if this lasts any longer than an hour, then there is going to be a buildup of toxic materials in that filter that are not being filtered through, and it can be anaerobic. I've got a couple here. But there'll be a buildup of ammonia and toxic substances in your filter, and you don't want your filters to turn back on and pour all of that stuff into the water. So right now, I've got 2 filters on this tank, and I'm sorry about the video, guys. I'm kind of working in the dark here. So I've got 2 filters here I'm going to unplug. I'm trying to show you guys. There's not much to see, but we want these unplugged immediately. So again, as I was saying, excuse me guys, this is a tight space. Boy, this is entertaining video, isn't it? So, all right. So back there, I've got my filters unplugged, and what I don't want is a buildup of toxic material in the filter that when it does come back on, all that gets poured right into the tank. Welcome to the Candlelight Theater, folks. This is an actual power outage. It's only 5:30 in the evening here, and normally we start to lose light around 6. So you can see around me everything's pitch black and dark. So what do I do with my tanks in this situation? You saw me walk around and unplug all of my plugs, and I did that for a reason, because without filtration, if those filters aren't running, all of that waste material that's in those filters, it's going to start getting broken down, and it's going to anaerobically produce methane and hydrogen sulfide and all this nasty stuff that we don't want in the tank. So I unplugged those, because if this lasts any longer than an hour and they come back on, all those nasty toxins are going to go right, that have been just sitting there stagnant, being broken down without flow, they're going to go right into my tank. So those are unplugged. Now here's the thing in this situation, oxygen is an important thing to think about. Even if you have a planted tank in the dark, plants take in oxygen. They're not giving off the oxygen. So normally under light or in lighted conditions, the plants help the fish. They're going to be giving off oxygen. In this situation now, they're going to be consuming it. So the oxygen requirements in the tank are going to be a little bit tough, and I'm going to have to monitor the tanks until the power comes back on to see how my oxygen is. Now, a good idea is to keep a battery-operated pump on hand so that you can put that in the tank, and you can create some surface area agitation, because right now in the dark there's no agitation whatsoever in these tanks. So that's a concern. All of my air stones are off, all of my air pumps are off, the filtration's off. There's absolutely no surface agitation in any of these tanks right now. The other thing to think about is your temperature. Now if you have a real hot room and you lose power, you might have to take some ice cubes. So it's a good idea to take some of your tank water and make some ice cubes with it. Put it in an ice tray. If you got a really hot day and your air conditioning turns off and isn't working, you can take those ice cubes, put them in the water if you have to cool them down. Now, what happens if it gets really cold in the room? You can wrap some blankets around your tank. You can try to keep it warm, keep it from getting any drafts. So we have to worry about oxygen right now. We have to worry about our temperature right now, and we have to worry about our filters. Now, if you have a canister filter, just unplug that, turn that off as well. So I'm going to kind of walk around. If this does last any longer than an hour, I'm actually going to take in my filters, I'm going to take the biomedia out and I'm going to put them inside the tank water. At least that way I'll know it won't be dried out and I won't get any of that nasty stuff moving into the tank. All right, folks, I know you can't see this, but this is a real power outage, so I'm right in the middle of it right now. For the oxygen, if you can see that little cup with some tank water in it, because you're not going to get any surface agitation, what you can do is simply take some water out of your tank and pour it right back in. That'll create some bubbles, it'll create some surface agitation, and that at least right there will provide a little bit of oxygen for the fish. Now, I'm not too worried yet because the power's only been off for about 25 minutes or so, but this is just a simple way that you can create some agitation to keep putting in a little bit more oxygen in the water. Because I don't know how long this power outage is going to last, I decided just not to take any chances, and I'm going to siphon some of the water out of the tank, fill it up in my bucket here on the floor. I don't even know why I bother moving the camera. It's so dark in here. You can kind of see it. Into that bucket, I'm going to remove all of the filter media out of the hang on the back filters, and I'm going to put them in that aquarium water because I don't know if this is going to last all night, a couple hours. I have to clean this tank anyway, so I just figured I might as well not take the chance. All right, so I drained out about 2 gallons of water out of this tank here, and I've got, let me get a light so you guys can see, I've got all of my filters. This is kind of the safer route to go. Hopefully you guys can, let me get this other light, it's a little brighter. What you can see here is I've got all my filters in a bucket, and I've got all my media in another bucket here. It definitely puts a damper on the night. I did not plan on doing this tonight. But at least now this isn't going to dry out. So there's a couple options with this. You can either wait and ride it out. See, if your power outage is only an hour long or so, or 2 hours, you still want to unplug all of your filters. But what you don't want is for them to, especially with the hang on the backs, is once the power goes out, you don't want that water to slowly drain out of the filter or enough to drain out where some of that biomedia gets dried up, because if that does get dried up, all those nasty toxins start to get broken down in the stagnant water. But if it dries up, it'll kill some of your beneficial bacteria. So this is kind of the safer route. Well, folks, just got word from the power company that the power is going to be out another 3 to 4 hours. So I'm glad that I took the precautions I did and at least got my filter media off the tank and into a bucket. No one's home right now, so it's just you and me, guys. So for those of you still tuned into the video, thank you. Thanks for keeping me company. Nobody's home. It is just you and me. Let me show you the top of this tank here, though. You can see there is no gas exchange happening at the top. That water is sitting and stagnant. So with a cup of water, you can pour that into some of your tank water into a cup. Just keep pouring it in. Fill it, pour it in. That'll at least create some surface agitation to get a little oxygen in the tank. Now, this is not my most heavily planted tank, but plants, when the power goes out at night, they take in oxygen. So the oxygen is further depleted in the dark if you don't have any surface agitation. So during the day, photosynthesis, right? Plants take in CO2, they give off oxygen. At night, they're taking the oxygen in. Finally, the lights are back on. Feels good, folks. I'm not stumbling around in the dark anymore. This particular power outage, it's about 10:30. It lasted about 5 to 5.5 hours. So the actions that I took, I'm hoping I saved some of my fish by unplugging my filters right away and by taking out a lot of my media and soaking it. Now, normally the power works great all the time. We rarely have power outages here. There wasn't any windstorm, there wasn't any weather to cause it. So whatever happened, it was a generalized power outage. The power went out across the entire block, actually more than that, about 4 or 5 blocks, about 1,000 homes is what it hit. So it was pitch black outside for a long time. So let's review. You saw me stumbling around in the dark. After I found a flashlight and finally some candles, here are some precautions again just to review in a power outage. Number one, immediately unplug all of your filters. You don't want any of the ammonia and the built up toxins. When the power's out and there's no flow in your filters, you don't want those toxins to build up and then dump into your tank. That can cause your fish a lot of stress, and that can potentially get them sick and could kill your fish. So immediately unplug your filters. If they're off for a couple hours and the power comes back on, all that nasty stuff gets right into your tank. If you have a temperature issue, if it's cold outside and you don't have your heaters working, you can try to wrap a blanket around or try to create some warmth through your tank. Now, of course, that's in more of an extreme situation where you're without power for quite some time. Now, on the flip side, if it's hot outside and your air conditioner stopped working because of the power outage, it's a good idea to take some aquarium water and make some ice cubes. Just make sure you label it. Don't get them confused. But put some ice cubes, keep them in your fridge. If that situation happens, which I know is rare, you can put some ice cubes into your water, and cubes that were from tank water, put those into your tank and try to cool the water down. The oxygen supply is super important, so a battery-powered oxygen pump is great to have on hand. I didn't have one, but as you can see, I used the method where I scooped out some water and poured that into the tank. You just want to create some surface agitation in the water. You don't want the water lying stagnant because there's no gas exchange. So if you just take a cup, pour it in, that's what I did a few times. Every hour I just did that a few times. There's probably plenty of oxygen in the tank, but just to be on the safe side, that's what I wanted to do. I'm sorry the beginning of the video was me stumbling around, but that's what I do in an outage, and now my fish look fine, the lights are back on, and I'm going to try to enjoy the rest of my evening with the lights on for a while. Again, folks, if you like what we're doing, please like, comment, subscribe for future content, and thanks for watching. I hope this helps somebody. Have a great night.